When we picture high-stakes diplomacy, we all think of that classic image, right? Leaders sitting around a big polished table hammering out a peace deal. But what if I told you the most important part of that whole process, the part that really decides if it's going to work or fail, happens way before anyone even sits down at that table? All right, let's get into this hidden world.
It's a great question, isn't it? It really pulls back the curtain on this fascinating, super complex part of diplomacy. It's a hidden world where the entire foundation for peace gets built, a lot of the time in total secrecy. And that right there, that's the absolute heart of it. Just getting to the table isn't the starting line. For many, it's the finish line. It's a huge victory all on its own, and it's the result of a really tough, strategic, and frankly, fragile process.
This whole process, it actually has a name, pre-negotiations. And yeah, you can think of it as literally the negotiation before the negotiation. It's these talks about talks where everyone figures out if it's even worth meeting, what they'd talk about if they did, and what the basic rules of the game are going to be. So what on earth does it take to get two sides who are actively at war to even think about talking? Well, the first and maybe the biggest hurdle is when both sides reach a point where fighting just feels hopeless. That point is called a stalemate. It's a painful but absolutely necessary moment where both sides have to admit that they can't win. They basically have a veto on each other's victory, and when force isn't working anymore, well, talking becomes the only path forward. But man, getting there can be a long and brutal road. Just think about the sheer cost of it. Before Egypt and Israel signed that famous peace treaty back in 1979, they fought four major wars. That's how much conflict it took for both sides to finally accept that a military victory just wasn't possible. The stalemate had arrived. But, even a stalemate isn't always enough. You need the political stars to align too. Leaders have to be pretty secure at home so they can take the risk of their opponents calling them soft. And funnily enough, it often helps if a leader is seen as a superhawk. Like the famously anti-communist Richard Nixon being the one to go to China. Nobody could ever accuse him of being a sympathizer. It's an incredibly delicate dance, where one wrong move can bring the whole thing crashing down. Okay, so you've somehow managed to get everyone to agree to talk. Huge win. But now comes the next battle. What exactly are you going to talk about? And believe me, this is not a friendly brainstorming session. The agenda itself is a weapon. The Brexit talks are just a perfect case study. The EU's position was simple. First, we settle the divorce. Things like how much money the UK owes. This put all the focus on the high price of leaving, which was a pretty strong message to anyone else thinking about it. The UK, on the other hand, wanted to talk about the divorce and future trade deals at the same time, or in parallel. Why? Because they wanted to jump to the good parts, the benefits, as fast as they could. So you see, the order of the conversation wasn't about logistics, it was pure strategy. An agenda can also be what's called prejudicial, which is just a fancy way of saying it's biased from the start. Just the way you word an item can force one side to give something up before the real talks even start. For example, are you discussing modernizing the military or the future of the military? The first option assumes it's sticking around. The second one, well, it opens the door to getting rid of it. Agendas can also be used for pure PR, or they can be left super vague on purpose to sneak a controversial topic in through the back door. All right, you finally agree on what to talk about. Now you have to agree on the how and the where. And this, my friends, is the grand theater of diplomacy, where every little symbol and procedural rule carries a ton of weight. I mean, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? Where should enemies meet? But wow, is that question loaded. It's all about power, about prestige, and about saving face. So there are basically three classic ways to solve this problem. You can pick neutral ground, which is why Switzerland and Austria are always in the news for these things. You can meet halfway, literally, to show that you're both equal. Or you can alternate, taking turns hosting. But that assumes you trust the other side enough to believe they'll actually let you come over for round two. And there's this great historical example of the halfway solution. Back in 1950, President Truman had to meet with the incredibly powerful General MacArthur to make sure it didn't look like one was summoning the other, So where did they meet? Wake Island, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, almost perfectly halfway between Washington, D.C. and MacArthur's HQ in Japan. It was a genius move to let both these powerful guys save face. And the details? They just keep on coming. Who's on the negotiating team? Send a junior diplomat, and you're signaling you're not that serious. Include a certain group, and you might accidentally grant them legitimacy they never had. How secret are the talks? Go public, and you risk hardliners on both sides trying to sabotage everything. Are you going to talk face-to-face or use a mediator? Every single choice is another move on this giant chessboard.
So, after all of this, it becomes so obvious, doesn't it? These so called talks about talks are not just some formality you have to get through, they are everything. They're the entire foundation for what comes next. A US diplomat named Harold Saunders absolutely nailed it. He said that a lot of the time, this whole pre negotiation phase is more complicated, more time consuming, and just plain harder than the actual negotiations themselves. Just think about that. The setup is tougher than the main event. Because that's the real takeaway here. Pre negotiations aren't the warm up act, they are act one of the play. They shape the substance, they define the symbols, and they build, or completely shatter, the fragile hope you need to even have a shot at peace. So the next time you see that news photo of leaders shaking hands and smiling, maybe you'll think about this unseen first act. You'll think about the months, maybe even years, of painstaking work, all the invisible battles over stalemates, agendas, and even the shape of the table that had to be won just to get them in the same room.